So, if you look at the original text of the 1776 Declaration of Independence, like, to modernize, it really looks like it was written by someone who just desperately needed autocorrect.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Because you see these phrases, right?
Yeah.
Like the course of human events, but with a capital C on course and like a capital E on events.
Right, yeah.
Or unalienable rights with this big capital R. And the pursuit of happiness gets a massive capital H. It looks like absolute capitalization chaos.
It totally looks like a typo-ridden mess today. But, the funny thing is, those weren't mistakes at all.
Wait, really? It was intentional.
Yeah, completely. They perfectly reflect the 18th century convention of, capitalizing important nouns. The writers weren't failing at modern grammar. They were actually succeeding at 18th century formatting.
Oh, wow.
Because for much of the 17th and 18th centuries, English writers capitalized almost every single common noun. It's actually a lot like what the German language still does today.
Okay, that is fascinating. And it proves something we, rarely think about, which is that English capitalization is essentially a dress code.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah, because it changes entirely depending on, the area you're living in or the specific institution you're working for, or even just whether you're talking about a specific VIP person versus giving a general job description.
Exactly. Sometimes the situation demands a tuxedo, and, well, sometimes it's fine with sweatpants.
Right. And today, welcome to the deep dive, because we are figuring out exactly what that dress code demands in the modern era.
And this is so important because whether you, as our listener, are currently, cramming for the TEAS or HESI nursing entrance exams, or maybe you just want to stop second-guessing your own professional emails, mastering this system is crucial.
It really is. It sounds simple on the surface, right? Just capitalize the first word of a sentence in proper nouns. Done.
If only it were that easy. But the edges of those rules are highly, highly contested.
Yeah, we totally assume capitalization is this fixed law handed down from, a grammar authority at the dawn of time. But looking at its origins, like that Declaration of Independence example, it really proves it's a living, shifting convention.
Oh, absolutely. And the need for rules actually started as a technological necessity, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Like the printing press?
Exactly. Standardization really began with Johannes Gutenberg's printing press, back in the mid-1400s.
Because before that, everything was just handwritten by monks and scribes.
Right. And those handwritten manuscripts definitely had distinctions between uppercase and lowercase letters, majuscule and minuscule, but there were just no consistent rules across the board.
Everyone was kind of doing their own thing.
Pretty much. But the printing press forced early printers to standardize letter forms, simply to organize their physical blocks of type. It was an inventory issue.
But even with the printing press, they were still capitalizing all those common nouns like happiness and events for another, 300 years?
Yeah, they were. The shift to our modern system happened quite a bit later. It was driven by prescriptive grammarians in the 18th century who basically wanted to declutter writing.
Like Marie Kondoing the English language.
Yeah, exactly like that. Robert Louth is a key figure there. He published this incredibly influential book in 1762. It was called A Short Introduction to English Grammar.
Okay, so his goal was to clean it up.
Right. The goal was to tame this cluttered, visually chaotic writing system for a public that was rapidly growing and increasingly driven by print. So the minimalist system we use today, capitalizing only specific names and the starts of sentences, gradually won out.
And then it was locked into place by major institutional style guides.
Right.
Like the Chicago Manual of Style back in 1906.
Yeah.
And later the AP Style book in 1953.
Yeah, those guides gave newsrooms and publishers a single reference book to ensure consistent formatting across thousands of writers.
Okay, but that brings up an interesting historical accident, I think. Because if the minimalist movement was all about decluttering and only capitalizing specific names, we have to look at the pronoun I.
Oh, yes. The pronoun I is a great example.
Right. Like, why is I always capitalized?
Yeah.
Honestly, it feels like an ego thing. Like you're saying, I am the most important noun in this sentence.
It does feel like that, but it's actually purely a visual fix from the Middle Ages.
Wait, really? A visual fix?
Yeah. Medieval scribes were writing in this very cramped, dense script, and they found that a lone lowercase I was just too easy to lose or misread.
Oh, it just blended right into the surrounding letters.
Exactly. So to solve a totally practical visual problem, they just enlarged it. The habit stuck, and now it's this permanent rule that's completely separate from the actual logic of proper nouns.
Okay, so our grammar rules are partly based on medieval monks who were just tired of squinting. That is amazing.
It really is.
So that drive to declutter English gave us the categories that we are tested on today. And understanding the logic behind these modern categories is how you actually pass exams like the TEAS or HESI, rather than just, guessing blindly.
And the single most heavily tested category is the distinction between proper nouns and common nouns.
So let's break that down. A proper noun names a specific, unique entity, right? Like Florence Nightingale or Baltimore or the Constitution.
Right. And a common noun names a broad category or a type, like a nurse, a city, a document.
Okay, and there's a really reliable test for this for anyone listening who gets stuck. It's called the substitutability test.
Oh, I love this trick.
It's so useful. If you aren't sure something is a proper or common noun, just try swapping the word a or some in front of it. So a nurse walked in makes perfect grammatical sense, which tells you nurse is a common noun.
Right, but if you say a Florence Nightingale walked in, well, unless you're speaking metaphorically about someone who acts like her, that just doesn't make literal sense.
Exactly. You wouldn't use an article like a for a specific, unique person. So that proves it's a specific, proper noun requiring a capital letter.
Where test takers really get tripped up, though, is with categories that feel like they should be proper nouns, but technically aren't.
Yes, the calendar is a classic trap here.
It is the ultimate trap. So days of the week and months of the year, Monday, March, Thanksgiving, those are always capitalized.
Right.
But seasons, spring, summer, winter, fall, those stay lowercase. You write spring semester with a lowercase s.
And people hate that. But if we look at why that is, it actually makes perfect sense logically. Because days and months are derived from proper names. Wednesday comes from Woden's Day, named after the Norse god Odin.
Right, and Thursday is Thor's Day. March is named for the Roman god Mars.
Exactly. They are literal names of historical or mythological figures, but the seasons, they're just old English words describing natural cycles. They aren't named after anyone, so they don't get the capital letter.
And understanding that underlying logic, that capitalization is deeply tied to specific named identity, it makes the rules so much easier to retain. And we see the exact same logic applied to demographics.
Oh, like nationalities and religions.
Yeah, nationalities, languages, religions, ethnic groups, they are always capitalized. French, Buddhism, Hispanic, Christianity.
Because they derive from proper nouns too, right? Like specific geographic places or specific founders.
Precisely. So they retain that capital letter no matter where they appear in a sentence.
Okay, let's talk about directions versus regions, because this is another area where the logic of specific identity really comes into play, and it messes people up all the time.
Oh yeah, the direction rules are notoriously tricky.
Right, so if I say drive north, that is completely lowercase because it's just a compass bearing. It's a common concept.
Yeah.
But growing up in the South or moving to the Midwest, those get capitalized.
And the reason is that in those examples, the words function as proper nouns naming culturally recognized regions.
Ah, okay.
Like the Midwest implies a shared culture, specific weather patterns, and economic history. It's a unique entity, whereas just driving west is simply a direction of travel.
I always think of it like the difference between pointing a finger and naming a room.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, like go east is pointing a finger, lowercase. But naming the specific place we're hanging out, like the East Coast, that's naming the room. So it gets capitalized.
I really like that. And, moving from general regions to the specific environments, you'll actually be working in hospitals and clinics present a whole unique challenge for this.
Because the line between a name and a description gets incredibly blurry in healthcare settings.
Oh, incredibly blurry, especially with job titles. Clinical text is absolutely full of titles, which is exactly why it's tested so heavily on exams.
So what's the core rule there?
The rule is that titles are only capitalized when they function as part of a specific name.
Okay, so if you write, I spoke with Dr. Ramirez, you capitalize Dr. Tire because it is directly attached to the proper name.
Yes. Or Chief Nursing Officer Maria Chen. Both the title and the name are capitalized there.
But if those titles are used descriptively, they revert to common nouns, right? Like, I spoke with the doctor. Doctor is lowercase.
Exactly. Or the nurse manager reviewed the chart. Nurse manager is lowercase. You are describing the generic role they fill, not using it as part of their actual personal name.
Okay, but medical terminology gets even trickier, I think, when we look at eponyms.
Oh, the eponyms, yes.
For those listening, eponyms are basically diseases or conditions named after the person who first identified them, right?
Right. And the rule for eponyms is that the specific identifier keeps the capital letter, but the rest of the term stays lowercase.
So, like, Parkinson's disease.
Exactly. Or Alzheimer's disease,
Yeah.
Down syndrome. The names Parkinson, Alzheimer's, Down, those are capitalized. But the words disease and syndrome are not.
But see, this looks so inconsistent on paper. I mean, if I'm a student taking a standardized test and I write Parkinson's disease with a capital P and a capital D, it just looks symmetrical and official. It feels correct.
It does feel correct.
Do I really lose points for that on the TEAS or CSI?
You absolutely do. And it's because only one part of that term is a true proper noun. Mr. Parkinson was a specific historical person. But the word disease is just a generic biological category. So the asymmetry is actually mathematically correct based on grammar rules.
That is so wild, but it makes total sense when you break it down.
And this rule holds true across the board. Diseases without an eponym like, say, diabetes, pneumonia, or hypertension, those are completely lowercase because there is no specific person's name attached to them at all.
Okay, but let's be real. It is incredibly tempting to capitalize words mid-sentence just to show they are important.
Oh, yes, the emphasis capital.
Right. If you are charting and you want the next nurse on shift to know that the patient has severe pneumonia, you might really want to capitalize severe pneumonia so it just jumps right off the screen.
It is a very, very common habit, and it's heavily influenced by modern marketing and, internet writing.
Oh, totally. You see a billboard that says, "Experience the ultimate comfort," with these big capital letters on ultimate and comfort to make them feel luxurious.
Right, but in standard academic or clinical writing, hijacking capital letters for emphasis is just completely incorrect.
And it actually causes confusion, doesn't it?
It really does. If a doctor is reading a chart and sees severe pneumonia fully capitalized, they might pause and wonder if that's, the title of a specific new clinical trial or maybe a branded acronym.
Instead of just a description of the patient's state.
Exactly. It slows down comprehension. If you really need to show importance in clinical writing, you should rely on precise word choice or italicization or just restructuring your sentence, not random capitals.
Okay, so the visual packaging of our words matters just as much as the words themselves.
Yeah.
And when we step back from individual nouns and look at how we format entire titles or references, the rules shift again.
They do. And this brings up the distinction between title case and sentence case.
Right, so title case is what most of us learn in grade school, right?
Yeah.
For book titles or headlines.
Yep, exactly.
You capitalize the major words, so nouns, verbs, adjectives, and you lowercase the minor words like short prepositions such as of or in or articles like the, unless they are the very first or last word of the title.
Right, so a book like The Art of War, the is capitalized because it opens a title. Art and war are major words, and of is lowercase in the middle.
Easy enough, but for nursing students formatting a paper, it's a totally different ballgame, right? Because of APA style?
Yes. The APA Style Guide, specifically the 7th edition, requires sentence case for reference lists.
And sentence case means?
It means you only capitalize the first word of the title, the first word after a colon, and any proper nouns. Literally everything else is lowercase, exactly as if it were just a standard, regular sentence.
Okay, so an article title like "The Struggle for Effective Nursing Documentation," a qualitative study that looks completely different in APA than it would on a book cover.
Completely different.
So the A gets capital T, but struggle, effective, nursing, documentation, all entirely lowercase.
Yep, all lowercase.
Then you hit the colon, and A gets a capital A, but qualitative study stays lowercase.
You nailed it. And the underlying logic for sentence case in APA is actually cognitive efficiency.
Cognitive efficiency, how so?
Well, think about it. When a researcher or clinician is scanning a dense bibliography with hundreds of sources, title case is visually exhausting. It's bumpy. Sentence case creates a much smoother reading experience, which reduces cognitive load. It's essentially an efficiency tool.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, but students who default to their everyday title case habits on an APA reference list will lose points because they are violating the specific dress code of that academic environment.
That dress code again.
Yeah.
But, even with all these strict institutional guides dictating our packaging, capitalization is still a living convention. It shifts based on how we interact with the world.
It really does. And a massive flashpoint for this happened recently with the word internet.
Oh, yeah. For decades, internet was capitalized in professional writing.
It was treated as a proper noun, basically analogous to the Pacific Ocean, like one specific, unique global network.
But then, in 2016, the AP Style book officially downgraded it. They switched to lowercase internet and lowercase web.
And their reasoning was fascinating. They said that the technology had become so ubiquitous that it functioned more like the word electricity or telephone.
Oh, so it was no longer perceived as a unique, isolated entity.
Right. It was simply a generic part of the background infrastructure of modern life. It lost its proper noun status through sheer ubiquity.
It's just so cool to trace a live, dated shift in a foundational grammar rule to a specific year in our own lifetimes. It perfectly illustrates that tension between prescriptive grammar, the rule makers dictating how things should be, and descriptive grammar, which just describes how people actually speak and write.
Yeah, when the culture changes enough, the rulebooks are literally forced to adapt.
But that tension gets even more complicated when rulebooks collide with corporate trademarks, right? Because brand names are a massive battleground for capitalization rules today.
Oh, they are a huge headache for editors.
Because you have companies like eBay, iPhone, and Adidas that deliberately style their names with a lowercase first letter. They reject the traditional capital letter to create this distinct trademark identity.
Right.
So what happens when the trademark lawyers mandate a lowercase a for Adidas, but the grammatical style guide mandates that every single sentence must begin with a capital letter? Like, who wins that fight?
Well, style guides like AP generally refuse to compromise the core architecture of the English sentence just for a corporate trademark.
So they force the capital letter.
Yeah, they require a capital letter if the brand starts a sentence. So if you write, iPhone sales rose, AP demands a capital I on iPhone, which completely overrides Apple's branding.
But iPhone with a capital I and a capital P visually looks like a typo. It clashes with everything we recognize about that brand.
It looks awful, which is exactly why skilled writers and editors practice what we call grammatical diplomacy.
Grammatical diplomacy.
Yeah, they just rewrite the sentence to avoid the clash entirely. So instead of iPhone sales rose, they will write sales of the iPhone rose, tucking the brand name safely into the middle of the sentence where its lowercase I doesn't violate the sentence initial capitalization rule.
That is brilliant. Just sidestep the conflict entirely.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the exam rules, the medical formatting traps, the trademark standoffs. But why should the person listening to this right now, care about this beyond just securing a passing score on the TEAS or HESI exams?
Because in clinical and professional settings, precision is not just pedantry. It carries very real, tangible consequences. In nursing documentation, precision around proper nouns directly impacts patient safety.
Right. Pharmacology is probably the clearest example of this.
It definitely is. You have to be able to distinguish between a capitalized brand name drug and its lowercase generic equivalent.
Like Tylenol with a capital T versus acetaminophen with a lowercase a.
Exactly. Knowing when to capitalize forces you to cognitively distinguish between a specific branded product and a general chemical category.
Because they aren't exactly identical, right?
Right. If a patient is allergic to a specific binding agent that's used only in the brand name formulation, confusing a specific brand with a generic category in the charting, it can lead to dangerous medication errors.
So it's the exact same cognitive discipline as the proper noun versus common noun questions on the entrance exam.
It is. Mastering this on the exam is actually building a mental muscle for clinical safety. It proves you understand the difference between a category and a specific, unique variable.
And on a broader professional level, inconsistent capitalization in your charts, your emails, or your resume, it unconsciously degrades trust, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If a hiring manager or a fellow clinician sees random capitalization, they unconsciously question your overall attention to detail. And in healthcare, a lack of attention to detail is a severe liability.
It comes right back to that dress code. If you show up to a hospital charting system wearing the grammatical equivalent of sweatpants, throwing capitals everywhere for emphasis, messing up the eponyms on disease names people notice, you want your writing to project absolute competence.
I couldn't agree more. Precision in your writing signals precision in your clinical care.
Well said. So before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about how the 18th century overcapitalized everything, and how the 21st century internet is slowly lower-casing things, like the word internet itself, or those corporate brands.
Right.
Think about how we text today. Many people text in entirely lowercase letters because it gives off a casual, relaxed vibe. It's a deliberate stylistic choice to avoid the formality of capital letters.
Yeah, totally.
So if everyday texting habits keep pushing the boundaries of descriptive grammar, what will the style guys of 2050 mandate? Will the rule of capitalizing the first word of a sentence, that visual signal that has been with us literally since Gutenberg's printing press, eventually die out entirely? Will the prescriptive rulebooks have to update once again to match how we actually type on our phones? Keep an eye on your own texts this week. Notice when you break the rules on purpose. And of course, good luck on the exam.